Good afternoon and welcome to Fast Horses Today. Today is Sunday. It is April 6th, and we're going to be covering some races over at Santa Anita. I think Santa Anita's got a post-Santa Anita Derby really good card here on Sunday. And, the latter half looks really nice. I like the pick five, and I do have a few win bets here. So let's get started over at Santa Anita. I do have a win bet in the seventh race. I'm going to skip over the first few races, and I'm going to go over the seventh race. Seventh race has an approximate post time of 3:30 Pacific, so that's 5:30 here in the Central Time Zone. This is a 6-furlong sprint race for maiden special weights. These are open company, so 3-year-olds and up. And I think it's a nice field of horses. There's a big scratch in the race. The 4-horse, who was the morning line favorite, Pursuit of Freedom, is out. So that leaves the race wide open and, gives me a horse that I do want to play here to win. So I'm going to make a win bet on the 6-horse, who is Varney, for Bob Baffert. This horse is 9-2. Kazushi Kimura takes the call. Now, this horse, I watched his last couple races. His initial race, to start out his career, he ran in a sprint race in what I think is going to be a live maiden race. It was won by San Saba, and the horse that came second, Modus Bestia, ran very nicely there. Varney came third that day in his first out. They ended up taking Varney into a two-turn race next time. He was the favorite that day, and just got out, was running close, and just had a very strange situation. Just kind of lost his stride. The comments here say lost action. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but the horse just kind of lost his action. And Juan Hernandez did the best he could, just settle the horse down and just relaxed him and eased out of the race. So I'm going to throw that race out. This horse, I think, has a lot to give. He's by Vekoma. We've seen some nice Vekoma runners lately. So that's a nice sire that's, fairly new sire, Vekoma. And, this is a big purchase. This horse costs $775,000 like so many of the Baffert horses do. And Kimura takes the call, which I like. Horse has trained nicely since that mishap of a race back on Valentine's Day. And I think this horse will be ready to give a nice effort here at 6 furlongs. So I'm going to make a win bet on the 6-horse Varney. All right, now let's go over to the 8th race of the day. 8th race does start the late pick 5. And the late pick 5, approximate post time about 4 o'clock Pacific, so 6 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. And the late pick 5 starts out with a nice stakes race down the hill, the John Shear. It's a $100,000 race, and these are for 3-year-olds, and named after John Shear. And if you guys remember, a long time ago, they featured John Shear. He was had been at Santa Anita, I think, as long as the first opening day ever. He worked there forever, and had a nice story how he saved a girl from danger there in the paddock when a horse got loose, and John Shear, was a hero that day. They named a race after him, and very nice to see that. So, in the John Shear, I've got 3 horses I'm going to put in. I think that one of these horses will get this pick 5 started. I'm going to put the 2 Artislas for Jeff Mullins. Raylu Gutierrez takes the call. Now, Mullins has been rolling pretty hot. This horse is 2-1 in the program, and Gutierrez has ridden the horse in the past. Now, Gutierrez has won 3 times on the horse back when this horse first started. Officially, it's 2 because he ended up getting DQ'd out of the Zuma Beach, which is a grade 3. Ended up breaking my heart that day. I had this horse at 4-1, won the race, got DQ'd, but followed it up in running, in the Eddie Logan, which is a mile race, and Flavian Pratt was on the horse, and the horse was a big favorite that day, and Pratt got the horse up there. They gave this horse a bit of a break, which I think maybe that's what this horse probably needed. He'd run quite a few times, as a 2-year-old, and, they gave this horse a nice break. Running down the hill should be no problem here. This horse certainly liked to run a distance of ground, running nice races at a mile. We've seen historically that usually bodes well for a horse running down the hill at 6.5 furlongs. So we'll put Artislas in at 2-1, and then I'm going to take a shot with a couple prices. I'm going to go with the 6 Supersonic Blue at 12-1 for Neil Drysdale. This horse has had 2 starts in his career. This horse by Air Force Blue. So Johnny Dimes, if you're out there listening today, Air Force Blue has maybe a live one here in Supersonic Blue at 12-1. That's the 6 horse. Maldonado takes the call again. Maldonado broke the maiden with the horse back in early January, 6 furlongs on the flat grass. So this horse might be able to go 6.5. Neil Drysdale does seem to have his horses running down the hill when he enters horses in the, for this distance and configuration. Then finally, I'm going to put the 7, who is muscled Patrick Gallagher, Umberto Rispoli. This horse, had taken a few starts to break his maiden and, just kind of run up against some nice horses. He ran with Game Warrior, who's a nice horse. He ran with Charlie Stablame, who's a nice, very nice horse, ended up winning a stake race, and ran up against Scipio as well, which Scipio came on to win a stakes race as well. So Muscle finally avoided all of those guys and ended up getting his maiden broken, in his lone start here in 2025. Comes out, I think, of a live race. He won that day. Mythical Real, who was second that day, ended up coming back and winning. So I think he broke his maiden in a live race. This horse, by Caraconti. Caracontis have been very live, it seems, on the turf. This horse is 9-2. I think he's live here in the John Shear. So we'll put the 2, 6, and 7 to get the pick 5 started. All right, now let's go to the 9th race of the day. 9th race is a California-bred maiden 50,000 claimer. 6 furlongs on the dirt, and this is 3-year-olds and older. And, open race, pretty open race. I'm going to put 4 horses in here. I feel, one of these 4 horses will do it, and it's starting out with the 5 horse, who was Charlie Pride, Phil D'Amato. Horse is 7-2 in the program. The Apprentice Carmona takes the horse. They put this horse, first couple spins around the track were on the Santa Anita flat grass. Horse ran some, even races. Ended up running last time. They dropped him in for 50, ran here on the dirt, ran an okay race. It's not a panic drop. I think it's just get realistic, run them where you can. There's a Nick Alexander homebred, and, his mare, Enola Gray, they bred this horse to Arrogate. So they, really took a big swing there, to create Charlie Pride. And, we'll see. Maybe Charlie Pride will be good enough at this maiden 50 level. I'm also going to put the 7 horse being Cotton Rosser for Sean McCarthy. Juan Hernandez takes the call. I do have a win bet as well on Cotton Rosser. So Cotton Rosser drops in for the 50. He started out his career back in late December, near the start of the Santa Anita meet, in a maiden special weight. Came out of what was a very live race, a special weight race that day. The horse showed some speed and backed off. A couple of those horses who came out of that race came back to be winners and multiple winners. They got realistic, ended up putting the horse in for a 50,000 claim. He was a shorter price that day, about 5-2. Again, got out, fought a little bit for the lead and backed off. They gave this horse a bit of a break. He hasn't run since late January. Now they're putting him back in for 50. I think this horse is live. Hernandez takes the call today. I think we're going to see a nice stalking trip, and this horse could finish up here. That would be Cotton Rosser. So I'm going to put him in the pick 5, and I'm going to make a win bet on the 7 Cotton Rosser. I'm going to also put the 8 horse being Artist Point, Jeff Bondi. This horse is 10-1. He puts the Apprentice Orontes on the horse. This horse has been running in maiden claiming races. We'll see. Maybe it's just the kind of thing where if this race is just evenly matched and void of talent, a horse like this can get a good trip and maybe, come home. So I'll put this horse in there, Artist Point. I have chased this horse a couple times in the past, so I don't want this horse to beat me if I take him out. And then finally, I will put the favorite, who is Let Me In, for Mark Glatt. This horse is 3-2 in the program. That's the 9 horse. I'm grudgingly putting this horse in. I'm not a big fan of this horse. I feel like this horse, had been running in special weights 4 times. And, some nice finishes, have come second a few times. And now they're dropping this horse in. So I don't know. But I'm going to put him in. Don't want to be kicked out if this horse does show up. So I'm going to put the 5, 7, 8, 9 and a win bet on the 7 Cotton Rosser. All right, now let's go to the 10th race of the day. 10th race is a mile on the grass. This is a starter allowance race. This condition is horses who have run for $25,000 or less in the last year or so, or you could put your horse in for a $32,000 claim. I think it's an open race, competitive race. I'm going to put 4 horses in this race. I'm going to put the 2 Yakolev, Hector Palma. Now, I don't know. I know that claiming off of Mullins is not a good idea. Hector Palma did claim this horse off of Mullins for $40,000, but if anyone can make it happen, Hector Palma would be the guy to do it. He seems to have some magic in his barn. So this horse is 2-1. He's the favorite. Probably will end up being the betting favorite. So I will put the 2 Yakolev. Palma might have found a good spot here, being able to run this horse in this starter allowance race off that claim for $40. So we'll put him in there. I'm going to also put the 4, who is Hurricane Cloud. For Richard Baltus, Tiago Pereira takes the call. Now, this horse has been kind of knocking around in this claiming level, in and around this level. And, Baltus is able to enter this horse in, doesn't have to go for the claim because this horse has run for 25. This horse has been competitive, as I mentioned, in this level. They're putting the blinkers on, so a couple changes, putting blinkers on, and they're putting Tiago Pereira on the horse. Now, Tiago Pereira certainly has done some nice work, over at Santa Anita this meet. And he's also done good work when he's paired up with Richard Baltus. So 6-1 will put Hurricane Cloud. I'm also going to put the 8 horse. 8 horse being Atomic Drop for Jeff Mullins. Again, it's tough to go against Mullins. Mullins, it might be trying to vie for the claim of the year here, or claim of the meeting. He claimed this horse for $10,000 back in late January. Ended up winning 2 subsequent races, one for a claim on the dirt, and then he moved the horse over to the turf and a starter level, a little less than this, ended up winning again. So this horse is 8-1. Acel Espinoza takes the call. Espinoza's been on this horse the last, few times and has won with this horse several times, so certainly knows him. So we'll see if, Jeff Mullins made a nice claim here. You don't see Mullins in the claiming game anymore as he used to be, but, maybe it's something like he liked here. And, we'll put Atomic Drop in there. And then finally, I'll put the 10 horse. 10 horse being McKinnon for Doug O'Neill. This horse is 5-1 in the program. Freysu takes the call. Now, McKinnon at one time showed a lot of promise. And I know the O'Neill barn was, pretty excited about this horse a couple years back. Things, the horse had won a couple times, but, things hadn't worked out as they liked. But I think that this is a soft feel where this horse could move up here, based on his back class. So we'll put the 10 in, that being McKinnon. All right, now let's move over to the next race of the day. One more thing to mention on that 10th race is the 11, who might have been the program favorite when it was all said, or might have been the betting favorite, is not in the race. So certainly changes things. So the 11, Fantastic, is scratched out. All right, now let's go to the 11th race of the day. Now, the 11th race is a race I really do like a horse here, and I'm going to single him, and my ticket all hinges on the horse here in the 11th. This is a 1.16 on the dirt. This is our first level allowance race. So, these are 4-year-olds and up, first level allowance horses, or you can put your horse in for the $50,000 claim if you've passed this level already. Some nice horses here, but I have a horse that I really like today. I'm going to single him, and I'm also going to make a win bet. That being the 6 horse, who is Extensive from Michael McCarthy. Kyle Frey takes the call. This horse is 4-1 in the program. I'll take that all day if I can get it, and twice on Sunday, today being Sunday, so we're going to get this done. I really like Extensive. He's had 3 starts in his life. This horse by City of Light out of a Daher. Would be probably the correct pronunciation, out of a Daher mare. So this horse certainly likes distance, bred for the distance, top and bottom. And, this horse has had 3 starts in his career. They started this horse out first time out, which I feel was a workout at Los Alamitos, putting this horse in at a mile. Horse ended up running a nice race, ran third to New King. We saw New King go on to win a couple races after that, so certainly a nice race there up against New King. They moved this horse over to Santa Anita, put the horse into a 6.5 furlong sprint in late January. This horse ran second to Santa Anita. Now, Santa Anita had been knocking around in the maiden ranks for a little while. Santa Anita is a talented horse, and, he just ended up going up against a few buzzsaws in his career, but ended up getting it done that day. It was really sharp, Santa Anita. Extensive ran second in a really nice race, I thought, being his second race. And they moved this horse back to a mile, being on March 16th, so it was a few weeks back. This horse was a big favorite that day. I think that was a pick 6 carryover day, if I'm not mistaken. This horse might have been the first leg of that, but for a mile race, horse was about 3-5. I really liked the way that horse ran that day. I think the mile was an education for him. The horse got out sharp. A horse tried to hook him. Kyle Frey took back and, just kind of relaxed the horse and moved him when he needed. Well, actually got it kind of moved a little premature. His stablemate ended up making this horse move a little quicker than he probably wanted to. But this horse drew off and won really nicely at a mile. I think the 1.16 and longer is what this horse wants. And I feel like Extensive is going to be a factor in the, older stakes division there in Southern California. I expect big things out of Extensive. So I like this horse. I'm going to single him. I'm also going to make a win bet on the 6 Extensive. All right, let's go to the last race of the day. Last race being the 12th, another marathon card there at Santa Anita. 12th race, approximate post time about 6 p.m. Pacific, so 8 o'clock here Central Time Zone. Oh, they put a real doozy of a race in the last race. This is a $25,000 condition race, a mile on the grass. And basically what this condition ends up being is it's a non-winner of 2 is kind of the way it works out. So, open race. I'm going to put 3 horses in. I like to get these 3 horses in coverage, have a live ticket, and one of these comes through and makes it happen. I'm going to put the 3, who is Hurricane Wave for Dan Blacker. Hector Barrios takes the call. Now, this horse had run with better to start his career, like many of these horses have. And, when he got into this claiming level, he ended up breaking his maiden on the dirt. But, his subsequent 2 starts were both at Santa Anita, both on the turf at 2 turns. It was, both in starter allowance. And I thought the horse ran some nice even races. I feel like this is certainly a dip in class. We'll make this horse faster at 5-2. We'll put the 3, Hurricane Way. I'm going to put the 5 horse, who is Naismith, Bob Hess, Kent DeSormo. These guys certainly have been a pairing for a couple decades, actually. Now, this horse is 10-1 in the program. The horse been running in this condition level at Santa Anita in the 25 level, running in sprint turf races. So, some nice even races. I think that, the switch to a mile should be no problem for this horse since he's won at this distance, and won, on the turf at this distance. 10-1, we'll see. DeSormo's been riding better. I know he won a stakes race yesterday. I hope, he's going to show up to the track ready to roll. And when DeSormo's ready to roll, you don't get anybody more stylish in the saddle than Kent DeSormo. So hopefully he's showed up with the mood to win. So we'll put the 5 Naismith. And then finally I'm going to put the 10 horse. The 10 horse being 6 Magpies, Mike Pipey, Tiago Pereira. This horse had been, kind of running in these, broke his maiden in a maiden claimer at a mile on the grass, so certainly likes the distance. Tried the starter allowance conditions back last year. This is his second time running this year, and, I like his last race. I thought he ran a nice race up against a horse who was a big favorite that day in Dealer Special. He ended up coming second that day, and, I think this could set him up nicely here. Pipey's horses certainly have been very live. Pipey's had a really good Santa Anita meeting, partnering up with Tiago Pereira. Now they've had a few starts, over the past, several months. They're looking for their first win together. Tiago Pereira's been riding well too. So 6 Magpies at 10-1 I think could be very dangerous. All right, now let's recap the day and recap the tickets. Okay, so today for Sunday, April 6th, we've got a late pick 5 ticket and some win bets here. So first we're going to start in the 7th race with the win bet on the 6 Varney. Let's go to the 8th race, starting the late pick 5. Going to start with the 2, 6, 7, with the 5, 7, 8, 9. With a 2, 4, 8, 10, with the single of the 6 extensive, and a win bet on the 6, and finishing that up with the 3, 5, and 10. Now today, that late pick 5 ticket is a $72 ticket, and I also have a win bet on the 9 Cotton Rosser in the 9th race. So $72 pick 5 ticket and the 3 win bets. If you feel like it, you could play as is. If you want to add or subtract, you can do that. Play the pick 3s within it. I really like that late pick 3 and the turf pick 3 have been paying very nicely at Santa Anita. Whatever you decide to do, I wish you the best of luck. Let's wish the folks over at Santa Anita a very safe day of racing, and let's wish ourselves some good trips that could result in good results. We'll take that. So thank you very much for watching Fast Horses today. Thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button, and if you haven't done so, I ask you to do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It just gets you joined into the audience and into the feed when new content gets created. You get to see it. You could like, dislike, make comments. I promise to respond to everything. Let's finish off this week at Santa Anita in a great spot. The Santa Anita, the great race place. Good luck today. Thank you so much.